Are you drowning in despair of the current state of the world? Do you feel powerless in the face of the most recent wave of fascist uprising? Have you spent the last 3 years doom-scrolling the news, unable to look away even though you know it is making everything worse? Are you afraid of you or your loved ones losing the most basic human rights? Well, dig into this booktok vampire smut. Booktok vampire smut. Instead of reading about how the world sucks, you can read about, well, other things sucking and getting sucked. And just today, you can get a bonus, an exclusive branded blood bag. If you want to lure in a horned up undead, simply place these bags on a path leading to your house.
Terms and conditions apply. The Sasha Corporation does not take responsibility for the unexpected outcomes, such as attracting alive people with the Blood Kink, the Pit fans, or concerned med students.
She doesn't know how big of a dick I have yet. I'm going to die and she doesn't even know. This is the worst. Hi, my name is Sasha, not Sasha, and surprisingly, almost 80% of the words from that quote are in the Bible. 85 if you adjust for contractions. See, I recently broke my brain when writing my master's thesis, and now I cannot read more than 20 pages at a time. So I decided to venture out into the world of booktok vampire romantasy for a change, in part because it's a genre I haven't really read before, and in part because I'm truly fascinated by the moral panic that surrounds the concept of largely women-dominated book spaces. And along the way, I found the word fangboner, some of the most baffling and random vampire lore I've ever come across, and sentences that made me reconsider being an ally to straight people. So sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey of questionable romance and vampire dick.
I wasn't sure whether I needed to include this disclaimer, but just in case. In this video, I am critiquing the book and even making fun of some aspects of it. However, I need to acknowledge that this is the author's debut novel. Debut novels are rarely perfect or even good. If anyone takes this video as an opportunity to be mean to the authors, whether in my comments or in theirs, I will shit in front of your door.
And we're back at the wall. She's a regular now. Anyways, the job market is driving me insane, so let's open up this €4 bottle of alcohol-free red wine and finally meet the cast. Well, it tastes like shit. Celine, the female protagonist. She's basically Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, but like a fucking cop instead of an emo icon. She's not like the other girls because she's edgy and I don't fucking know, wears a leather jacket. That's pretty much it. Her mom abandoned her and her dad has dementia. Does that impact her character? No. Her dad also left her his cat named Midnight, who Celine has like a love-hate relationship with. Again, does that impact the character? Not really. Notable things about her, she's definitely not Bella Swan. Xavier, or Zav for short. The male vampire protagonist with a very questionably spelled name. He's also basically Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, but like a serial killer instead of an emo icon. I mean, the book literally opens with him thinking to himself, "The sound of grown man begging for mercy always brings a smile to my face." Yeah, the book is written in first person with POV alternating between Xavier and Celine, so you know, prepare for the quotes. Xavier thinks he's the Joker. I think he's got the energy of a man who posts about wanting a goth mommy GF on TikTok. Even worse, he's a redhead. Ava, Celine's best friend and co-worker. Ava is the anti-Celine because she's girly and she has pink hair, I guess. And that's not me lazily analyzing characters. Listen to this. With wavy pastel pink hair and a white flowy shirt, she's the polar opposite to my ebony locks and black ensemble. I suppose in our line of work, you either compensated for the constant debauchery by being a bubbly optimist like her or a solemn realist like me. Ava also has more chemistry with Celine than Xavier ever could, but since the book operates on a strictly heterosexual basis, that chemistry is never addressed. Luna, the owner of the coffee shop Ava and Celine frequent. Gossipy, fun, love that diva. Spencer, Ava's boyfriend. He's Ava's boyfriend. That's kind of it. As I mentioned, the book opens with Xavier killing a 40-man gang and simultaneously declaring his motivation for being, well, a serial killer that derives pleasure from the act of killing. Supposedly, he only kills bad people. as some sort of wannabe Batman type vigilante. But it's not like I can rely on the cops to actually do their job. I'm bored. I might as well help clean up the streets and wreak a little havoc on my own while I'm at it. We're not gonna get into this can of worms right now, but keep this in mind since Xavier's fuck-ass philosophy will become increasingly more relevant throughout the book. So he's this notorious serial killer that the police can't catch because he leaves no trace. And because vampires don't have fingerprints in this universe. Can we get a running list of confusing vampire lore going somewhere over here? Thank you, editing Shasha.
Can you add this? Can you add that? How about you add it yourself if you're so fucking smart, huh?
Aw, I love you too. While you're at it, add the fact that your vision stays the same after you become a vampire, even though all other senses, like smell, somehow improve straight to superhuman levels.
Of course. Of course they do.
After carefully arranging the remains of bodies into a tableau, like he always does, Xavier makes his exit. But not before seeing Celine examine the crime scene and becoming instantly obsessed, because apparently this cop is his one true mate. Wait. Is this NBC Hannibal for straight people? Is this fucking play about us? Whatever. So at the coffee shop, Luna puts Celine and Ava onto the fact that the new club in town is very suspicious and may have something to do with human trafficking. Ava takes that as an opportunity to go out and have fun, and Celine takes that as an opportunity to do some independent snooping. In the meantime, Xavier kills a man who dared to hit on Celine, and then he also kills her neighbor and takes over his apartment, which is accompanied by more wannabe Joker bullshit. But me, I'm the monster under your bed, the shadow stalking your every move. Oh my fucking god. And he also has professionals who help him dispose of the neighbor's body, because apparently when you're Xavier, you can just kill whoever and still not fall into the bad people who don't deserve to live category. As per my notes taken during the initial read, motherfucker, you're a criminal. Also, apparently, hot and cold doesn't affect vampires like it does humans. And like, I guess vampires die without blood and blend in pretty easily with humans, despite the fact that Mr. Vampire over here would only blend in with Joe fucking Goldberg. We get some more not like the other girling from Celine. Ava might have succeeded in getting me into the dress, but I will be wearing my jacket. Some girls might be able to brave the chilly Chicago winter in skimpy outfits, but not me. I'll never choose beauty over function. And then Celine and Xavier have a meet cute at the club that consists of grinding and sniffing. Xavier thinks to himself, whatever she wants, I'll give her, except another man. I'd kill him before I'd let another man even touch her. Because believe it or not, there are no gay people in this universe. And no chance that his very queer-coded love interest could be anything other than straight. So, when Celine snaps out of being digmatized and remembers she's at the club to snoop, she tries exactly that and fails miserably. Well, luckily Ava is there, and she just happens to overhear some suspicious shit while in the bathroom, because the villains in this book decided to build a vent that connects the bathroom and the back office where they do all the suspicious shit.
Wow, that's so narratively convenient.
The next day, again, as per my notes, Xander, or whatever his name is stalking Our Lady. And they have an actual face-to-face meet cute at Celine's apartment complex, because now that Xavier killed her neighbor and took over his apartment, they live next to each other. Isn't that cute? We then get to meet Xavier's seemingly only friend and chess partner, a man so old he's practically a fossil, mostly blind and deaf at this point. His name is Tom, and he's the most interesting character in this book, but it's not like we're gonna see much of him, because we gotta wait for them to bone. So, Xavier sneaks into Celine's apartment to sniff her couch and steal her underwear, and finds out that Ava set up a date for Celine and Spencer's cousin Asher. What the fuck is up with these names? The grumpy cat named Midnight also likes Xavier, probably because they're both predators. Also, vampires don't need oxygen to survive, and if too many supernatural beings gather in one area, it rains a lot. Don't even question that. So, when the day of the date comes, Xavier crashes it and probably kills Celine's date, but most importantly, this is where the term fangboner is first dropped on the reader with no fucking warning. So, Let me tell you what that is. For a book that always clunkily gives you all the lore and characterization, this definitely overlooks the greatest part of vampirism, in my opinion. A fangboner, if I'm reading this correctly, is a half-ironic term for when a vampire experiences particular emotions, like, say, lust, very strongly, which causes their fangs to pop out involuntarily. This can be remedied by drinking blood, and, I have some questions. Namely, is there such a thing as vampire puberty? And if there is, how do you survive that? Does a fangboner manifest the same way regardless of gender and ability to pop an actual boner? How do hormone levels in the blood the vampires consume affect fangboners? Canonically, after the first 100 years or so, a vampire's heart rots away, so like, what is pumping the blood? Like, fangboner is not the only type of boner the 300-year-old MC can get. So how does that work exactly? Also, again, where exactly does the blood go? Since vampires cannot even blush. Anyways, the strong emotions also cause the vampire to burn through the blood in their system quicker. So, you know, Xavier has to go and find his blood plug, which is a vampiress he had a brief relationship with, named Luna. Wig! Yeah, I'm bald now. Anyways, Celine goes to visit her dad at the assisted living facility he's in, and it's tough, and Xavier comforts her about it. And now is probably a good time to take a brief detour to talk about my first actual issue with the book. You know, I'm not just here to make fun of it, believe it or not. And my issue is that instead of weaving the characterization into the character's actions, the author duo just outright puts things directly into the characters' mouths. And I don't mean like the fun kind of things in the mouth. I mean sentences such as, if I'm a possessive bastard on a good day, I'll be downright murderous on a bad one. And worse than just cringy and clunky, sometimes this characterization simply does not match what we've seen of the character before.
Now, obviously, such a thing can be used effectively in literature to inform our understanding of the character or like showcase their lack of understanding of themselves and yada yada yada. That, however, does not happen in this book. It's very Katy Perry, you're hot and you're cold, you're yes, then you're no, with no actual narrative or like artistic merit to it. So that's why I take such an issue with it.
For example, midway through the book, in chapter 27, Celine suddenly mentions that she's never been the super confident type and talks about being insecure about her body, whereas that has never come up before. Not where it should have, like when Ava was making her wear a very revealing dress to the club in chapter 5, or any other time when Celine talked about her appearance or the appearance of other characters. These insecurities are mentioned once, not elaborated on, and then they disappear into thin air afterwards. This does not add to our understanding of the character or change it. It's just there. Same with, for example, Celine's backstory and her relationship with her father. It comes up in the beginning of the book, but we don't actually see it inform her motivations or actions. She says that her job and her father come first, but it's really not true. Like, yeah, she visits her dad once and has an emotional outburst about it, but that is only used by the authors to advance the relationship between Celine and Xavier and quickly abandoned. It just reads as very raw and not thought through, to be honest, and I feel like the potential for the MCs to be more complex and interesting is just wasted. The story would have been so much more engaging if we saw how Celine's responsibilities and anxieties as a caretaker affect her romantic and platonic relationships with other characters. But all we got is fangboners, I guess. So, back to business. The almighty vampire falls on his face and Ava and Celine have to patch him up, and he convinces Celine to go out with him. He goes to Old Man Tom for advice, and they make fun of Twilight together. First, add this to the list. Second, this shit is rich, coming from a book that was so clearly written in a post-Twilight world and could not exist without Twilight, down to the nonsensical vampire lore and characters that are definitely not Bella Swan and Edward, whatever his last name is, I don't remember. Cullen, Edward Cullen. Granted, the authors are quite self-aware And even though the specific brand of humor the book employs does lean more millennial and therefore is not exactly my jam, some scenes and jokes are genuinely fun and delightful. I think this is where they shine in like the more absurd comedy aspects of the story. But the absurd comedy is over now. It's time for some absolute fucking bullshit. A very not suspicious, ignore this sticker, girl named Genevieve comes into the precinct and tells Celine that her friend Katie disappeared after a visit to that suspicious club from the beginning of the book. Remember that? Remember when that happened? Celine goes to investigate, meets an old lady with some quote-unquote crazy-ass dentures, and of course, Xavier, who's, you know, stalking her. There's wig hair in my eye. He explains how he's working odd jobs for fun because he's actually loaded, yet the jobs in question always seem to be wherever Celine goes. Whatever. He pops another fangboner when she calls him Zav, his preferred name. Anyways, date night! He goes all out and arranges a picnic with a beautiful view of the city, and the MCs open up to each other, and also Xavier mentions his crazy ex, and they make out, but Xavier is not that type of girl. You know, he might be a vicious serial killer, but he doesn't believe in pre-vampire bond confirmation sex. And remember, he's definitely not Edward Cullen. Also, banger opening sentences in chapter 18. I'm hard as a fucking rock. I'm talking dick absolutely weeping. Still rod in my pants. But then their purity edging competition gets interrupted when Celine gets a call about how her apartment has been broken into. She is distraught and needs somewhere to stay. And of course, Xavier volunteers the apartment he literally killed a man to live in. Honestly, this is a part of Xavier I can definitely relate to as somebody currently apartment hunting. I would do more than kill a man for an apartment. Celine's boss gives her some time off, and there's more stalking and vampire domesticity. As their romance progresses, Xavier also refers to her as the death of my dick, title of my sex tape. He then receives an assignment from somebody called Death's Assistant, and the fact that this wannabe vigilante serial killer shit is actually, in fact, just him doing someone else's bidding will not be examined in the book, because apparently this is not good enough material for the Fangboner Chronicles. Yeah, so Xavier goes out and kills a man, of course not without torturing a confession out of him first. Like, no wonder the motherfucker is in love with a cop. They're two peas in a pod. Then he stalks Celine some more, despite going on and on about how the break-in she experienced is an insane invasion of privacy. I guess privacy doesn't exist when it comes to true love. On the way home, Xavier has a run-in with a feral vampire that tries to kill him and ultimately badly injures him. Another 2 points added to the fuck-ass lore list. And just then, dragging himself to the apartment bloody and on the verge of death is when Xavier thinks to himself, she doesn't know how big of a dick I have yet. I'm going to die, and she doesn't even know. This is the worst.
This is the worst.
This is the worst.
This is the worst.
Celine has to do vampire CPR on him and even goes to find Luna for some extra blood bags, thinking that her boyfriend is in some weird blood drinking cult, but ultimately being okay with it. Xavier confesses to her, and she immediately hate crimes him by doing a bad Transylvanian accent. Deserved. The whole scene is, again, full of pathos and very reminiscent of Twilight. Celine also asks why he didn't just drink her blood to heal, and this is also when we get some major Xavier and generally vampire lore, so roll out the list. First, vampires are essentially a result of some borderline eugenics bullshit people were doing in the 18th century, and Xavier got turned into a vampire when he volunteered to be a science guinea pig for money in order to help his family.
Let me tell you what I was doing in '94.
I really want to know.
I was sitting in the dark drinking blood. You think I was watching The Lion fucking King?
Why were you drinking blood?
Because I was goth, bitch.
And yet somehow, after almost 300 years of being a vampire, he still has a noticeable lisp when he pops a fang boner. Like, surely after 3 fucking centuries, he'd learn how to talk around fangs? Whatever. Vampires, apparently, are also into scents. Again, Cullen style. And they also cannot sweat. Oh, more. I guess you become hot when you turn into a vampire. Otherwise, I could not explain why a poor person living in the 18th century has a super sporty sculpted gym god physique. Or like, can you gain muscle after being turned into a vampire? Honestly, more research needed. So finally, in this universe, vampires and others from the supernatural community have mates, which is just short for soulmates. And it can be a human, but that's very rare. And they can have children with humans. The supernatural community is also quite territorial. Like cities tend to be vampire hangout spots and werewolves prefer wooded seclusion. Again, don't make me say it, don't make me tap the sign. And then, a new fighter enters the arena. The author's badly concealed spanking king. And just like the non-stop dancing methed out guy at a party, it's here to stay and better not addressed. Celine is called into work to see the remains of the man that Xavier killed, and of course, he insists he needs to tag along and does not take no for an answer. Celine starts to suspect something is up with the Xavier guy, but ultimately waves her suspicions off because he's too goofy to go around slaughtering people like this. The goofy serial killer also refers to Celine as my little wet kitten. Xavier takes Celine to meet Tom, and the audience has to sit through a rather awkward scene that just reminds them how much more interesting all the other characters are, or at least could be, if they had more than 4 scenes. But we're stuck with Daddy and his little wet kitten, I fucking guess. Then Celine has a crisis over the fact that history books lied to her and she wasn't taught about vampires in school? Okay. Ava, meanwhile, has a crisis over her long-term relationship crumbling because Spencer has been offered a job in California and she wants to stay in Chicago. The girls go out for burgers, and yeah, Xavier is working at the fucking burger place. And yes, it is implied that he killed their original waiter. Back at work, Celine's boss informs her they found the corpse of the girl that disappeared, Katie, Katharina, whatever her name is. Celine, who earlier said she was thinking about changing her entire career and that she only took on this job to appease her dad, thinks to herself, "It bothers me more than anything when bad people get away with what they've done." And did I know the woman? No. That didn't make her life any less important. Put a pin in that until this timestamp. There's more poorly concealed spanking kink. And then Zav tells Celine she's his mate, and his love confession sounds more like a threat, to be honest.
You can't get rid of me, bitch! I'm not going nowhere!
Listen, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but with each passing day, it is harder and harder for me to be an ally to straight people when you lot behave like this. Zav, Celine, and Ava go back to the nightclub to do more unsanctioned sleuthing, and Celine overhears some sus conversation in the bathroom, just in case you forgot about the vent. The vent is still there. And whose voice does she hear exactly? Genevieve! If I had more wigs, I'd take the second one off right now. And then Celine jerks Xavier off right there at the club, not even in a bathroom or anything, just straight up at the table, while she's supposed to be sleuthing and or supporting her friend who's going through a lot.
What makes me a missy cunt? It's just me as a person.
Also, Celine mentions that she doesn't want to bring Ava into this because she's not a cop, and Celine doesn't want to put her in danger, but neither of those arguments have ever stopped her before. No time to think that over. The man who broke into Celine's apartment has been caught, and he doesn't remember anything because he's been vampire hypnotized, I guess. Not in the way that Celine was dickmatized earlier, but like actually hypnotized. Yep, thank you. That man is found dead soon after being released to, really hammer home the point that something is very Tarantino's favorite snack. A foot. Something is afoot. After Celine moves back into her apartment and Xavier acts manipulative about it, we get this book's first, proper sex scene.
Big, juicy tits,
There's honestly not a lot I can say about it, but it's okay. It's very vanilla, if anything, and I was impressed that the authors refrained from putting their spanking kink into the scene. That takes restraint. I'm gonna start texting my friends this instead of just saying, "Excited to see you, dude." And after the fuckfest, when Xavier makes Celine breakfast, he puts his serial killer signature on pancakes, and she finally has to confront the fact that he's the evasive killer she's been trying to catch. Seriously, is this not Hannibal for straight people? So Celine's mad, and she runs out of the apartment.
It's time to take out that pin that I told you about a couple minutes ago. Congratulations on your attention span, what can I say?
But about 30 seconds into it, she's already thinking, when I really think about it, the crime scenes are gruesome and he might take it a bit too far with the theatrics, but he's only killing people that deserve it. Diva, weren't you the one who is all about fairness and valuing everyone's life? And here's where we come to my second main problem with the book. It sets up these core differences between the main characters and does nothing with them. He's a serial killer who thinks death and torture of the bad ones is justified, and she believes all lives are important. Xavier and Celine's worldviews are fundamentally at odds, diametrically opposed, and seeing them face that and deal with it would inform the romance on a deeper level and make the characters more human, no pun intended. But instead, she gets over the fact that her boyfriend tortures confessions out of people and then kills them in a surprisingly short amount of time, and it doesn't impact their relationship at all. How convenient! Or like when Celine storms out of the apartment and tells Xavier to leave her alone, he still follows her, having absolutely no respect for her desire to have space. If the authors explored that, we could have seen the friction of a relationship between basically an all-powerful eternal being and a human, or at least these two personalities. But I guess the lack of respect Xavier has for Celine and her boundaries is okay because vampire mates or something, again, is just a waste of an opportunity to make the text richer and the stakes higher. But fear not, for we got a fuck-ass plot twist instead. Somebody abducts Celine. Wow, how the plot thickens. Again, don't make me say anything about the sudden twist towards the end of a vampire romance book. Just don't. The last roughly 20% are honestly the worst part of the book, mostly because of how enthusiastically it shoves all of the story's potential down the drain. So I'm gonna be quick about this. Celine is trapped in an underground prison with some rando vampire named Valen, short for Valentine. Valen is getting tortured in there and Celine is being held captive because, wow, Genevieve is Xavier's crazy ex and she kidnapped Celine because she hates that Xavier isn't with her. Seriously?
Guess who's jealous of Adele? Beyonce.
Xavier tries to find Celine, but fails because he's stupid and his inner beast is mad about it. Genevieve presents him with an ultimatum and he rejects her, so she kills old man Tom. R.I.P. Tom, you were my goat. Ava helps to actually get the ball rolling on this half-assed search/investigation. Meanwhile, in the underground prison, Celine and Valen bond and she feeds him her blood to make him stronger so they can break out. Celine also says she's not mad at Xavier anymore, and as per my notes, this is crazy work considering that he's a serial killer. Celine and Valen break out and fight vampires and Genevieve, and then Celine crawls through that narratively convenient bathroom vent, and at that exact moment Xavier and Ava pull up and drive through the fucking wall, and Xavier and Celine are reunited and their conflict does not exist anymore because, well, they are in love. And then they do the vampire mating ritual thing, which consists of repeatedly sucking each other's blood. And then newly single Ava and Valen, who doesn't stink of piss anymore, imagine this dog but clean, meet up. And the rest of the story is gonna be continued in book 2. And scene. So the authors announced that the series includes 3 books about 3 couples. Come on. Yeah. So maybe all the unresolved questions will be answered in book number 2. That being said, the last 10 chapters feel like such a lazy, underbaked wrap-up, and all the fun I had when reading the previous 40 straight up fucking evaporated. We get no exploration of the characters and how their personalities mesh, because apparently love conquers all, especially underdeveloped and neglected conflict. Well, on to closing thoughts, I guess.
You're boring! You are so boring!
Overall, I think the book is okay. Like, it's quite mid. It's not bad. Definitely not so bad it's good bad, but it's not good either. The authors waste nearly every opportunity to make the text or the relationships between the characters richer and more complex, and every conflict is resolved with a lazy, well, they're in love. And I respect the desire for a love conquers all bubblegum romance, but then maybe don't set up these fundamentally, potentially relationship-ruining differences between the MCs and make it something more trivial, like, I don't know, movie taste or something. I'm not a writer, don't look at me like that. Additionally, what really doesn't work for me is how the stakes never feel real. Like, Genevieve goes for Tom, but I think her killing Celine's father would have made for a stronger moment, which showed how serious she was about ruining Xavier and Celine's lives. And don't even get me started on all the corny, overused, crazy axe shit, or how Xavier only mentions this crazy axe once, and outside of that, Genevieve's previous actions don't seem to have impacted him at all. Finally, the writing is simply clunky at times. Like when Xavier is killing yet another man, he notes, "The smell of urine quickly soaks his pants." The smell quickly soaks? Really? Or when Celine observes, "Xavier gives half a snort, but gives Midnight one last stroke before standing." Sentences like these could be fixed easily, but for the most part, they don't really ruin the experience. Not like actual lazy writing does, at least. Now, I'm not just here to talk shit about the book. Like, yeah, sure, I think the MC's dynamic and the whole, "Oh my god, he's so big and strong and I'm so petite and cute" shtick is boring and washed out and frankly perpetuating toxic sexist bullshit, but I also recognize that some people do like those sorts of partnerships and enjoy reading about them. I'm woke, I believe in straight people's right to have a size kink. Where the authors shine, however, is in the more meta and humorous aspects. Again, it's not my exact type of humor, but comedic timing is often on point with some raunchy lines thrown into more serious scenes. The general absurdity of some situations is also quite well written, and we do dip into like almost Dracula-like vampire shenanigans, which was highly appreciated.
You must bounce on it. Crazy style.
I'd say this author duo can benefit from fully embracing the comedy aspects and moving away from deeper dramatic explorations of relationships, but I'm not the fucking writing police. They can do whatever they want, just like you could do whatever you want, forever. And to close all of this, here is the best sentence of the entire book. "She's right though. Once I had a taste of her perfect pussy, it was game over." I love you millennials, never change. This is actually fucking hilarious.
Almost time for Halloween. Don't come to my house or else I'll suck your dick. Blood. I'll suck your blood.